free you are. You have been free, always free. But what is freedom? Consciousness. And you are consciousness. Therefore, you are free. And consciousness is bliss, happiness, love. And how is it that you forgot it? Because when you are in contact with objects of the senses and you get happiness, you get pleasure, and therefore you think that contact with the objects of the senses gives you happiness, therefore everybody is involved with the objects of the senses. Where is the bliss? When the mind is in contact with the object, it gets pleasure. At that time, while getting pleasure from any person, anything, any idea, one is happy. But at that time, in contact with all these three things, the intelligence is steady for some time. When you meet an object that you wanted to meet, you wanted to meet a friend, and friend is in front of you. At that time, the object that you wanted is in front of you and you are happy, and this happiness is attributed to the object. Why? This happiness is the result of your intelligence. Intellect is steady at that time because it wanted to meet an object, and so it met with, at that time, it becomes steady. So when this intellect is steady, at that time it returns back to the source, which is the fountainhead of bliss. So at that time, this intellect being steady, the self is reflecting on it, because there is nothing in between self and the intellect. Therefore, she returns back to the self and gets happiness till that object is there. And this happiness doesn't come from any object. How did you lose it? When this object is in front of you, then you go to another object. Then again, the intellect is distracted from one object to another object. So again it becomes steady, meeting another object. Then again this self reflects on it, means the bliss is reflected on it, and you attribute this bliss to object. That is the mistake we are doing always, you see, we don't understand. And once we know this, if we keep the mind steady, and then the self is reflecting immaculate happiness and bliss on this thing, and it will go inward and become one with the self. So whenever there is a pleasure, it is from the self, of the consciousness, not of any object. Because objects are all temporary. Begin, stay, and vanish. How can anything that appears and disappears, is not permanent, can be of the nature of the self, can be nature of the bliss? how can we expect any bliss out of any kind of object? But it is the self that is bliss, and once you know it is the self that is bliss and you are one with it, then whosoever you will meet from the self, and you will not find any difference between you and other objects, and your love will be forever, not with the name, not with the form, but of the self to the self, of the self within the self. So this is very simple. That's what in this satsang we are stressing. You are already free, and this freedom is consciousness that gives you bliss. It is that's all to be spoken about. This satsang means association with the self alone, not associating with name and form. That every day you see, when you go to sleep, you enjoy a sort of bliss, happiness, peace. Why? Because at that time you don't carry name and form when you retire to sleep. During that 5-6 hours you are happy. Every day you go to sleep only for this reason, to return to your self nature of which is bliss. So we can always make up this habit to be always happy and always in the same state as we had been in our sleep state to begin with, and later on when it becomes habitual, natural, then it will transcend the waking, dreaming and the sleep also, and you will be transported to some other state, and that is for you to experience now and here. Oh.